everyone?
Yeah.
I've never used it.
Okay, cool. We'll do a quick little overview. So we have a pretty robust way to survey clients, and you can get the reports pretty anonymously. So it's usually a good use of it would be to survey them over satisfaction in general about the services they're receiving at your organization. If you run a commodities program, like for the USDA here in the States, you might survey them about, at your agencies, if you're the food bank, you might survey to make sure that they don't feel like they've been discriminated against in any way and that they're being accommodated in as many ways as possible. It's also a good way to figure out if the people that you've trained and you've done outreach work with are doing a good job. And really just to figure out what's going on with them. So it's stuff that you may want to learn from your clients at the food pantry, food bank level that maybe doesn't come up in the standard intake process. So you might want to figure out a really good use study that we'll be publishing in the next few months is about a food bank that learned a lot of their clients were suffering from payday loans, predatory lending loans, which was increasing their need for the food bank. And that's the kind of conversation stuff that doesn't come up in standard intake, but as you're talking to them every day or every week that they come in, you start to hear these things, and this is a really good way to quantify the things that we're hearing. So I will go ahead and show you how we set them up. First, as I always suggest, open up our user manual, and if you're unsure where to start with reading about our surveys, just search it. And I'm not going to get fancy. I'm just going to type in survey. And you can see it matches all of the different things here. So how do I add a survey? And we've got all of these documentations here, so you can do the step-by-step guide. But we're going to run through it today. There are a couple of steps that you need to do. So first, you'll need to have administrative privileges. So if you don't, you'll need to talk to your network admin about this and request an upgrade in permissions. Right now, I'm logged in at the network. And most of you who are network level staff know what that means. It means that I can't serve clients from here. Client access is restricted. So I'm going to create this survey from the network level, but you can actually create the surveys at individual agencies. So say you have one organization who really wants to run their own survey in their region that's completely separate from anything that the network would be interested in learning. You can definitely do that. You don't have to give the survey out to everyone in your whole entire food bank network. You can just do it at your location. So I'm just noting that designation because alternately, if you create your survey at just one organization and you mean for it to go to everybody, you'll have to recreate it. So important distinction there. So we'll go to administration and then surveys. You guys won't see this screen. I have a lot of permission in this training site. You'll just see this screen. So the first thing that you'll need to do is configure the survey, which I think that we use configure a lot in this. Basically, this means you need to write your questions. So what do you want to ask about? Today, we're going to be running one called example survey. So we're going to add a new question. Once you've already created it, it'll exist here. You can click manage all of them if you want to, or you can make a new survey. We're just going to edit this existing one, and we'll add an extra question today. So you can reorder any of the questions you've created just by clicking reorder. You can drag it and move them around. Now we'll click a new question. And you'll write the content of your question here. So it could be, whatever it is that you want to find out, but we've got several different response types. So much like the surveys that we take on BuzzFeed and other places like that, we've got several choices for you. We've got a single choice option where you can really just choose one of those. So just choose one. You may have a list of 4 or 5 options. So yes, no, does not apply, or I don't know, but they can only choose one box. This is the one that you would choose. Multiple choice, which means choose all that apply, which is maybe a question about how did you hear about the food bank? Oh, I heard from a friend and I got a flyer on my car. So they may want to tell you 2 responses. A rating scale, and you would just put, so that's rate this on a scale of 1 to 10. Make sure you define the rate in your question, right? So you may get a bunch of 1s and you're like, well, 1 was the worst and 10 was the best. I guess I should have told them that. You want to make sure that it's very clear. But then so you would designate, is it 1 through 5, 1 through 10, 1 through 3? That's the rating scale. We've also got a Likert scale. So it's got a scale there so that you can, I agree somewhat, I agree, disagree. We've all seen those with this doesn't apply, where you can decide how much you agree with something. Simple text box, which lets the survey respondent type in an answer, a free-form answer. This is always good for something where you're trying to get feedback on that maybe you can't think of. They'll give you something. Now remember, when you're going through that, you'll have to read all those. You can't aggregate them in a report. So just don't use every one of them simple text, or you'll probably get pretty unusable survey data. And then multi-line text, which is, I'm going to let them send me their dissertation. Not really, it's not that long, but just a couple of lines of text. And that, again, that's really good if you want detailed responses of things that you're really needing to get a greater insight into. And then, of course, the good old standard yes or no. So today we'll do the Likert scale, because I didn't have that one created already. And anybody want to take a stab at the question that we should ask? You're all unmuted, by the way. You're very good attendees. Didn't have to mute anyone. Okay, I'll make one up. If nobody wants to, oh, this is a good one. What is the reason for needing food bank services? Okay, we'll go with that. Probably won't do Likert for that question.
Oh, okay.
But we can also do a sample of the simple text. I don't have one of those set up either. Once you're done, you just click save on your question. And then if you wanted to reorder them, you could just click that reorder button and shuffle them around. You can use these surveys year over year. And in fact, we kind of recommend that you do that. That's how you get a good baseline to administer the same simple survey at regular intervals. But sometimes we'll know that we need a new data point. So that's why we let you reorder that. So then we'll go back to our survey manager. And the next step, that's all kind of step by step. The next step would be the rules configuration. I created one already, of course, for the webinar. Actually, I'm going to create a brand new one so you guys can see what that looks like. So the rules configuration, or a better way to say this might be, who do I want to send this survey to? What are the rules in which I want this survey to appear for people? So we'll just call this, no, I don't want to call it hunger count. It's too soon, right? We'll call it hunger study in Dallas, because I live in Dallas. You have a couple of choices here. So we can include clients with all of the following, meaning any of these rules that we add here, we can add multiple. So only if they hit multiple pieces of this. So it might be include clients with, I'll delete this one, who are women. So we'll do, what about this? We'll do custom, and we'll go with gender is female. Then we'll do another custom. Maybe we only want to talk to women who are over the age of 60. I feel like that's a pretty small sample, but we could even add another one. Who are over the age of 60 and whose race or ethnicity includes Hispanic Latino. So that's what it means by create your configuration. So you can get that detailed so that you're not hitting 100% of every single client that comes into your door, but maybe you really are just trying to understand one population that you've seen in some of your reports that seems to be underserved in your community. Does anybody have any questions about this? I know it's it can be pretty granular. We're going to do it just on let's ask everybody, but you can get pretty custom with it. Any questions so far on how you tell the survey tool which people to ask the question to?
Is there a way to list like every 5th person?
Like randomized?
Yeah.
That is a really good question. What I would do, let me delete some of these. Sorry. Oh, that's going to be the next part of it. So you could just leave this alone. We'll delete this too. So you would pick the, sorry. We do that in the next session, which tells it what percentage of these people do you want to ask. So once you decide, I don't know how to say exactly which number of person, but it's in the next, like it's 6 person, but it's percentage that you can designate.
Yeah, we call it framework.
Yeah. But this is how to tell it who it is, and then we're about to create the framework now. So that was, what are the rules? Steph, you don't have to have any rules, right? You have to have a framework.
You can go straight to framework.
Yeah, you don't have to have any rules. This is only if you want to get pretty specific about who gets the question. But here is the framework. So today we're just going to look at one that hits everybody so I can make sure we always see it. But I'll hit new framework. And it is a percentage that you do here. So we could do 10%. That's why I got hung up on. I don't know how to say every 6th person, but I could say, okay, I serve 600 people, so I'll do 10% of them. 10%. And you would just list that here. Then you can also further designate this by a custom rule. One of the cool ways that I usually use my survey, and my partners that are using it, they use the self-identifies field because everybody tracks that, and they usually have some customized options there. So you can decide includes or does not include. So say I want to include, oh, I didn't add anything in my first one, but a lot of people will want to make sure that they ask everybody who identifies as a veteran some additional questions, and that's a way to do that in the rules configuration. The next thing that you can do is if you're a network staff person and you're creating this framework at the network level, you can just send it to a few agencies if you want to. So if you're just trying to send it to a representative sample of your organizations, you might put in a couple of organizations that you want to do it in. We'll just keep, we'll send it to Stephanie's place. We have a lot of places in our training one. You can designate just a few, or you can select all of them, or you can uncheck them too. So it's the same way that you create your reports when you see these familiar tools, just use those. Okay. Any questions so far? I'm sure there are. So we created some rules. Next, we created the framework. And now we want to tell it, when do we want to run this? Because you probably don't want to run the survey, 12 months of the year, or your volunteers don't want you to anyway. So we'll take a look, and I've already created one for our example today that just runs for the month of September. But what it looks like when you do a new survey run is you choose which survey that you're going to be running. So again, you want to run surveys at a regular interval. So you're probably going to reuse some of the questions that you've already created. So you'll choose the survey that you want to run. Maybe you have one surrounding holidays. Maybe you have one that's later in the year, just surrounding back to schools type of stuff. You could just survey parents, for example, households with children, to kind of get a pulse on how many backpacks you might need, or if they need school supplies or uniforms more, to kind of help you allocate those resources. But you choose the survey, you choose the framework you've created. So we, seniors, we made all of these rules up before. Males named Francis, that's my dog. We'll go with 100%, that means include everyone. And then you also tell it whether or not I, as a client, can respond to this survey more than one time. So if I hit the survey again, do you want my response or not? So you would say, yes, I want you to answer it every time it pops up, or no, you don't have to answer it. Then you can select the dates that you want the survey to run. So you could even have it, scheduled in the future if you are a planner, and then click save.
Angela, I have a question.
Sure.
On that one where you had it, if you want them to answer the question again. So if they answer at one, if they say no, does that mean just that pantry, or if they go to any other pantry, they'll be excluded from having to answer it again? You understand what I'm saying?
So if they decline the survey at Pantry A, but then they go to Pantry B and their demographics have them hit the survey again, will they be prompted to take it?
Right. If I say allow multiple client responses, I say no. That's for anywhere. So they answer it one time, they don't have to answer it again, right?
Steph, do you know? I think if they decline it, they decline it. Is that
completely? When it says allow multiple client responses, yes or no?
I'm not sure if it will decline every single time.
at every agency?
Yeah. You can double check and then I'll definitely get back to you on the answer, but I'm not sure if it will, like even if it was the same location, if you did it for like 6 months, I don't know if it will decline every time. But I'll double check.
So you think that answer is just for the agency, for each agency individually?
Or even just any time, like each time the client comes in, that's what I think it would be.
Okay.
So if it was like a 6-month period and they came in next month, for it to pop up again, like how about now? Do you feel comfortable taking the survey now?
Well, then for that to happen, you'd have to have the yes button checked.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. If you have the no button checked, if they answer it one time, then they're good. But declining it is something we'll have to look into at different organizations.
Under this section, if you say no, that you only want them to answer it once, no matter how many times they go to a pantry, they only get asked once.
Yes.
Okay.
But we need to check to see if they decline it. Does it decline it at every location that survey is running at, if it's running at more than one?
Okay.
I think it would probably depend pretty heavily on the security scheme you selected. So if you're an open network, it likely would say no everywhere. But if you're semi-restricted or restricted, it'd probably need the client, not probably, I think it makes sense that it would likely say, we don't know what you've said before because we don't share visit info. So we have to ask you. So if they're going to multiple pantries in the same semi-restricted network, they'd probably get prompted to answer or not answer again. If they just keep saying no, they may just have to keep reiterating that at different agencies. Not at the same, but at different ones. It's a good question. Okay, so that is our survey run. In this survey run, you can actually see, you can kind of peek in to see how many responses you're getting. We have reports on this too, but I like to always just kind of creep in here and see how many responses do I have. We also have the view folder so that you can see who submitted it. So you get the worker's name. So Angela Tess Johnson did this one. This is the date that it was done. And this is the client ID that responded. So you can always see the number of responses you've gotten so far. If you're running a survey and you see 0 responses a few days into it, probably something wrong with your framework. Or the outreach workers are just not administering the survey. So it's just good pulse checks to make sure that people are understanding what's being administered at their organization.
The organization
now I'm gonna,
as the clients
sorry.
come in. Sorry.
Go ahead.
The organization is asking as the clients are coming into their organization these survey questions and recording the responses on their profile, or?
It's not in their profile. We'll take a look right now, but yes. So say the client's coming in to seek services, which is usually our touch point with them. If they hit the framework that you've designated, and for this one, I'll show you the framework is pretty simple. We decided if they, in their self-identify section, decided that they were undisclosed, then we wanted to ask them some questions about that. So this is the touch point in which we're seeing them. When we go to the services page, normally we would just be recording their pantry visit or whatever it is. But here, actually I must have hit it twice. I have 2 survey runs now. A little survey notification will pop up right here so that you can see that they're qualified to take it. And I have 2 runs when I made the sample, sorry guys. So if the client decides to take it, you can take the survey now. I have a reminder on my profile that says to remind me to record my visit. That's why that pop-up happened. Some of you may not have that. And so then we see all of the questions that we created together. So the first one was, have you run out of food in the last 30 days? They can say yes or no. They can't say both. Rate your satisfaction with the quality of food at your local pantry. This person, which is me, didn't do a great job. I didn't define as 10 good or as 1 good. We'll go with 10 as good. How long did you have to wait to receive food today? You can add as many options as you want. These are the first 3 that I added. Hopefully nobody's waiting more than 3 hours, but this is a good way to find out. And then what is the reason for needing food bank services? So this is one where we did a simple text, which means we just have this one little line. If we did the multi-line text, we'd have a larger text box. The reason is,
I didn't realize that you just showed the sample that you can mix the types of questions.
Yeah, the different types of responses.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to make sure that you're getting accurate information. Sometimes what I'll do when I'm creating a survey is I'll ask the same question in a couple of different ways just to make sure that I can throw out any errant responses, whether maybe they didn't understand the way that they're supposed to submit their response. So I might say, rate your satisfaction with the quality of food at your local pantry. They may have a bias against local pantry or, whatever word it is. So you might even say, do you is your family typically satisfied with the food that you take home today? Things like that. You can find different ways to ask the same question in multiple ways to make sure that you're getting to the actual answer. I don't know what a good response is here. We have so many different answers to this particular question. And then once you're done submitting all of the answers, you hit save. And it's going to give you and the client one more opportunity to make sure that they have answered it correctly. So depending on your pantry protocol, you might even show them their selections just to make sure that they are comfortable with the responses you've captured. And it also makes sure that they have the right scale and things like that. So you can show them this if you want to see what their selection was. So I selected 10 out of this rated scale. I selected 1 hour or less. I selected yes. And then here's my answer that I provided. If they are comfortable with it, you can click confirm. If they don't want to submit it, it gives them another chance to get out of it by hitting decline, or you can edit the responses again. If they're like, oh, that was 1 through 10, 10 is the worst and 1 is the best, I'm into 1. Classic customer survey responses to have a poorly defined Likert scale. So we'll go ahead and click save again. And then once we're confident that this is good, we'll just hit confirm. Any questions on submitting the survey? Cool.
Now it must be in a report, right?
Yep. Now we're going to pop, you're a genius. That's what we're going to go look at next. So we have a couple of different reports to help you with the survey. The first one that I'm going to show you is the answer frequencies report. It reports on the frequencies of answers to all survey questions during that period that you designate. So just like all of our other reports, you're going to be pretty comfortable with it. You just give it a title. You can choose to keep it just for you, or you can share it with other interested people at your food bank. You can put in your dates. And then you can run it for every organization by select all. You can deselect all. You can just type in 1. Do that. And then you can actually choose whichever survey that you want to run on. Any questions there? Oh, you'll click create report. I've already created one, so we'll just take a look at that. Switch to the network level actually, so I can run all the different reports. I ran this report earlier, and I actually think I'm going to run it again, so we have more responses. Sorry. It'll be super quick because they're all created so easily. And it's done. You can use the tools that we have for every one of our report sections. You can send it to Excel or copy the data table. You can print it or send it to PDF. But question number 1, have you run out of food in the last 30 days? Yes, no, count, total. Oh, I did not record a visit. I'm so glad this happened. Sorry. After you record your survey, you need to record the visit. So normally they're coming in for a service, right? They're here to receive food. You need to go ahead and record their visit. So whether it's TFAP or just regular Pantry, any visit will do. You do need to record what you've given to them that day after you administer the survey so that you don't forget the reason they actually came in. Sorry about that. Okay. One more time with filling the reports. You choose your survey. You have to be at the organization where you made the survey. So I was logged into that agency level, not into the network level where I created my survey. So I didn't actually see the survey that I created, which is example survey. That's why I had to switch. And if you're like me, just rerun and rerun and rerun. Well, something's wrong with that. We'll take a look at the one that I made much earlier today, and we'll just look at a small data set. So all of your tools are still applicable. Get all of the answers that you've gotten here, and you would export them. All of your questions are still here. We're not going to have the new one that we got because this is an old report that I ran, but then you can export these tools to Excel. Oh, sorry, my screen went away, guys. Should be back now. And you'd have your counts before we actually recorded the visits. I just don't want to make you watch me run that report again, but it would give you all of your raw data so you can aggregate it. The other report that we have is the non-response report. So you can get a pulse on how many people did not respond. And actually, Steph, if you could, maybe go, now we'll just decline it. I'll just show you what the report looks like. I forgot to decline the survey. So we won't have any data. But it gives you a little insight into who's declining the survey that you've created. You can also use all of the groups that you've already created for your agencies, if you already have agency groups. And then, I guess I did say no a couple times. So it gives you the number of people who declined to respond to the survey during that period. So you can get an idea of, is this really irritating my clients? How many of them are saying, no way, I don't want to take this? I'll let you know both by the agency. So you can see if the agency's getting a lot of non-responses. Then it also gives you a worker report. So, you know, maybe every time this Angela works, 100% of the people she helps decline to take the survey. It kind of gives you some insight into, well, maybe Angela just doesn't want to ask about this question. So it gives you a little insight into both of those scenarios. Both as a network, you can see all of your organizations that you would select here and how many of them are having a high percentage of declines. And that tells you something too, right? So nobody at agency A wants to take this survey. Well, what's going on there? Is it because they have wait times of greater than 4 hours already and they can't be bothered with a 30-second survey? There could be other issues, so you can get some insight into that. Any questions about this? I think it's a pretty helpful tool.